Some landscapes welcome us, others test us. Patagonia is precisely such a place. It reminds you that there are still regions on Earth never designed for human comfort, places that make you feel smaller and quieter. Here, winds can exceed 100 kilometers per hour. The weather can change dramatically in a matter of minutes. Distances that appear short on a map or navigation screen often transform into hours of genuine effort. That is why Patagonia still feels wild, even in the 21st century. This is not a land ruled by humans. It is one of the last places where nature still has the final word. Patagonia stretches like a frontier, still living by its own rules along the spine of South America. Divided between Argentina and Chile, this untamed region spreads from the dry steppes of the Atlantic coast to the hard walls of the Andes, and from there to the fjords, glaciers, and channels that eventually surrender to Antarctica. On the map, it may look like nothing more than a region at the tip of South America. In reality, Patagonia covers nearly 1 million square kilometers, making it a vast wilderness almost twice the size of France. Much of this immense geography is nearly empty. And in some places, there are not even 2 people per square kilometer. This is where one truth about Patagonia reveals itself. Here, distance is no longer measured by numbers on a map, but by time, effort, and uncertainty. In Patagonia, the road itself becomes a silent negotiation with wind, cold, and solitude. If you truly want to understand Patagonia, you must first learn its language from its glaciers, its winds, and the deep silence of granite. There are places in the world that you've seen on a map, heard about, maybe even seen in photographs. But the moment you step there, you realize that everything you thought you knew was only abstract. Patagonia is exactly that kind of place. A land where expectations remain abstract, and reality always turns out to be more real. This journey begins at the very edge of South America and goes even further. From glaciers to granite towers, from hanging ice to marble caves, from ocean shores to the end of the world, each region speaks its own language and carries its own presence. But at their core, they all share the same thing. A world untouched by human hands, shaped by nature over millions of years. These lands are not meant to inform, but to make you feel something. So in this journey, you won't just see names and numbers, you'll feel the atmosphere itself. If you're ready, let's begin. To one of the most powerful and unforgettable places on Earth. El Calafate feels like a gateway to one of the largest glacier systems in the world. It is a modest but strategic town built on the shores of Lago Argentino, the largest freshwater lake in Argentina. Many glaciers descending from the southern Patagonian ice field feed into Lago Argentino. The pale turquoise tone created by glacial sediment transforms the lake from an ordinary body of water into a work of natural art. Every day, boats depart from the town's harbor toward Uppsala Glacier, Spegazzini Glacier, and other protected areas that can only be reached by water. Lago Argentino covers roughly 1,415 square kilometers. It is one of the deepest lakes in the Americas. reaching depths of more than 500 meters in some sections. With its long, irregular arms, it resembles a giant sea creature stretching deep into the Andes Mountains. Above the steep cliffs along its shores, enormous birds glide through the sky, one of Patagonia's most iconic sights. Condors. With wingspans approaching 3 meters, these giant birds do not rely on constant flapping, but on rising air currents that allow them to soar almost effortlessly. The shores of Lago Argentino also host seasonal flocks of flamingos. With slow wing beats lifting them into the wind, flamingos gather during certain times of the year in the shallow lagoons and wetlands surrounding the town. Their long, delicate silhouettes and pink bodies create a striking contrast against the muted tones of the Patagonian steppe and the cold, blue surface of the lake. Their presence reflects the health of wetland ecosystems fed by glacial meltwater, revealing the deep connection between the ice field, freshwater systems, and local wildlife. Here, the sense of time has always been different. In the early morning, before the sun rises, the lake looks like a frozen mirror. Even the slightest breeze causes the surface to ripple, and the reflection of the mountains shifts with it. When you first arrive in El Calafate, one thing becomes clear. This place exists to take you somewhere else. Not itself, but what lies beyond. The town takes its name from a yellow, thorny plant that grows in the region. There is a saying here: whoever eats the Calafate berry will return. It may sound like a legend, but once you see this place, it becomes easier to believe. When you walk from the town toward the shore, the lake greets you in silence. From a distance, it looks calm. But as you get closer, you begin to feel its scale, its depth, its cold. The blue of this lake carries the memory of glaciers thousands of years old. One of the few glaciers in the world still advancing. A glacier that seems to openly challenge time, while so many others silently retreat on a warming planet. It stretches along Lago Argentino near El Calafate, in the heart of Los Glaciers National Park. Rising to around 74 meters above the surface, it also plunges more than 250 meters below into cold, sediment-rich waters. Yet, its most remarkable feature is not its size, but what scientists call its dynamic equilibrium. Snow falling on the peaks of the Andes compresses into dense blue ice and moves forward at roughly 2 meters per day. Over the past century, it has preserved its overall volume and area with extraordinary stability. In a warming world, that rare balance makes it feel like one of the true natural wonders of our time. Perito Moreno forms a natural ice dam. As it advances toward the Magellan Peninsula, it also divides Lago Argentino in two. Its southern branch is known as Brazo Rico. There, water accumulates over time and eventually bursts through the ice barrier, creating one of Patagonia's most dramatic spectacles. Massive blocks of ice crash into the lake, and the sound can be heard from kilometers away. Perito Moreno presents itself not simply as a glacier, but as living evidence frozen within the planet's memory of millions of years. When you stand in front of the glacier, you realize it is far larger than you expected. Photos simply fail to capture its scale. The wall of ice rising before you feels like the edge of another planet. The silence is so intense that even the occasional crack echoes like a shock wave. From afar, the ice appears white. But when you look closer, especially into the deeper crevasses, you notice a strange blue glow. This color comes from light, reflecting through air compressed inside the ice. What you're seeing is the result of pressure built over thousands of years. Time behaves strangely in front of Perito Moreno. After a while, most visitors stop taking photos. They just watch, waiting for something to break, for a piece to fall, for the ice to collapse into the water. That waiting keeps you grounded in the present, a rare thing. As boats leave the port of El Calafate and move deeper into the fjord-like arms of the lake, the scenery changes in epic fashion. Patagonian beach forests cling to the slopes in dark green layers. Granite walls rise sharply, and the narrowing waterway finally reveals Spegazzini. Spegazzini Glacier can only be reached by water. There is no road leading into this part of the park. Unlike Perito Moreno, which spreads broadly into Lago Argentino, Spegazzini rises vertically. Its ice walls climb up to 130 meters, making it the tallest glacier face in the region. Spegazzini is difficult to describe in words. It greets travelers with the quiet dignity and restrained grandeur that define the glaciers of Patagonia. The boat moves slowly. Along the way, the shoreline changes first flat, then steep, then almost vertical. Where the forest ends, rock walls appear, and beyond them, a massive body of ice. The transition is so sharp that it feels like nature ended one sentence and started another. As you approach Spegazzini, you begin to notice subtle sounds. Beneath the movement of the water, there is a faint vibration coming from the ice. You can't see it, but you can feel it. Standing before that towering mass, it almost feels like the glacier is breathing. El Chaltén is a small frontier town set in the northern section of Los Glaciares National Park. It was originally established for geopolitical reasons, to reinforce territorial presence. But few could have predicted that this small settlement would eventually become one of the world's great pilgrimage points for hiking and trekking. Trails begin right at the edge of town, leading into river crossings, forests, and open viewpoints without the need for long transfers. No matter how harsh the terrain ahead may be, that direct access makes the landscape feel close, immediate, and personal. Movement defines this place. At the center of the region rises Fitz Roy, reaching 3,375 meters with commanding elegance. It is not among the highest peaks in Patagonia or the world, yet climbers regard it as one of the most technical and demanding mountains anywhere. Its granite spires look almost unreal, sharp and jagged like shards of glass. Winds above 100 kilometers per hour wait for those who attempt it. Storms come and go within hours. Even the most experienced climbers often have to wait days, sometimes weeks, for the right window. From its summit, it is harsh and unforgiving. From its base, it appears serene and magnificent. The trail to Laguna de los Tres climbs through lenga forests and open valleys before ending in a steep final ascent. It sits right beside the granite walls of Fitz Roy. In winter, it freezes into a white expanse, blurring the boundary between lake and sky and creating a legendary scene. In summer, fed by glacial meltwater, it takes on a deep cobalt blue that seems to redefine color itself. Its name, Lake of the Three, honors the three climbers who first reached the base of the mountain. It marks the final destination of one of Patagonia's most iconic hiking routes. When you wake up early in El Chaltén, the town is still asleep, but the trails are not. Footprints begin forming even before sunrise. Everyone moves in the same direction, toward the mountains. That collective movement is what sets this place apart. People don't come here to stay still, but to move. Fitz Roy is often hidden behind clouds. Locals are so used to this that every morning they look out and ask, "Will it show today?" And when it does, the moment is shared. Strangers tell each other. Everything else stops. Everyone looks up. As you walk toward Laguna de los Tres, the forest thins out, the trees shrink, and eventually, only rock and wind remain. When you climb the final slope, you understand why nothing grows there. The harshness isn't selective. It treats everything the same. And when you finally see that deep blue lake, you understand why it feels so powerful. Just west of El Chaltén, beyond the Patagonian ice field, another mountain rises, Cerro Torre. It may not be as tall as Fitz Roy, but its character is even harsher. Its narrow granite tower is often coated in heavy rime ice, formed when moisture carried by relentless wind freezes instantly on contact. Because these fragile formations appear without warning, routes change constantly and dangers remain unpredictable. Cerro Torre stands apart from the surrounding peaks because of its sheer vertical form. From below, it looks precise and solitary, while its summit seems tightly held by the clouds. With its almost surreal appearance, Cerro Torre represents the very edge of what patience and skill can achieve in Patagonia. The best way to see Cerro Torre is unexpectedly. Some days, it is completely hidden behind clouds. You only see its base. But even that is enough. You don't need to see the whole thing to understand how sharply and vertically it rises. Here, you can clearly see how ice forms on rock. These ice formations, called seracs, are created by cycles of wind and moisture. After sunrise, storms can reshape them again. The summit is constantly rewritten by this process. Known as a UNESCO Biosphere Reserve, this is a place where granite peaks rise beside active glaciers, sunlight reflects from brilliant blue lakes onto wide golden grasslands. Here, wildlife moves with complete freedom. At the center of the park stand Los Torres, 3 steep granite towers shaped by tectonic forces and glacial erosion, creating the defining silhouette of Torres del Paine. To the southwest rise the Cuernos del Paine, whose name translates from the native Tehuelche language as horns of blue. Geologically, these summits are different. Their upper and lower sections are made of dark, sedimentary rock, while the middle band is a lighter layer of granite. This two-tone structure gives the mountains a sharp color contrast that sets them apart from the typical forms of the Andes. Water defines much of the park's identity. Lago Pejoe is known for its intense turquoise color, created by suspended glacial sediment. On calm days, those who come searching for picture-perfect scenery stand by its shores and watch the Paine Massif reflected in its surface. Farther west lies Lago Grey, where floating chunks of ice drift like puzzle pieces after breaking away from Grey Glacier. This glacier stretches about 6 kilometers wide and rises as much as 30 meters above the waterline. It forms an essential part of the southern Patagonian ice field. As you enter Torres del Paine, you feel the park pulling you inward. Guanacos walk along the road, ignoring passing cars. Condors glide overhead, almost motionless. After a few kilometers, it becomes clear. Humans are not the priority here. Standing by Lago Pejoe, the color of the water feels unreal. But it's not a filter. It's the result of minerals carried by glaciers over thousands of years. On windy days, the color deepens. On calm days, the entire massif reflects on the surface. 2 mountains, 2 skies. Those who hike the W&O trails know this. Every day, the park shows a different version of itself. What you see in the morning may disappear by afternoon. You cannot say you've truly seen it, because it never stays the same. At more than 1,200 kilometers long, the Carretera Austral is not just a road, it is a journey. It is stitched through fjords, rivers, and forests. Much of this route was carved open under difficult conditions, becoming one of the most ambitious infrastructure projects in Chilean history. Linking communities through mountains, forest, and water. If you want to experience constant change, you can drive this road yourself. You cross narrow bridges above roaring rivers far below. You encounter waterfalls spilling directly beside the route. Because of sharp turns, gravel sections, and sudden weather shifts, you move slowly and carefully. There is no highway speed here. These are roads shaped by the land itself. To travel the Carretera Austral is not to look at a landscape painting. but to move inside one. Here, the journey itself becomes the experience. And as the route pulls you deeper into Patagonia, it leads toward one of the most striking visual transitions of the entire trip, where ice seems to hang above the forest. This road carries a sense of mystery along with its calm. Time per kilometer becomes uncertain. One turn opens into an unexpected valley, another leads to a river crossing. Navigation often fails, you rely on instinct and the landscape itself. Along the route, small settlements appear. Each feels like its own world. A bakery, a few houses, maybe a small harbor. Stopping, having tea, exchanging a few words with a local, these moments become some of the most meaningful. There is no real end to this road, only directions. Some continue south, others north. But everyone who completes it says the same thing. This was never about reaching somewhere. The journey itself was the destination. Queulat National Park feels completely different from the open vistas seen elsewhere on this journey. Here, the dense, temperate rainforest defines everything. Lush vegetation, constantly moving water, and moisture-filled air shape the atmosphere. Because the area receives high rainfall throughout the year, it creates ideal conditions for ferns, mosses, and rich green forests. Queulat's uniqueness lies in the harmonious coexistence of ice and forest. Glaciers descend from higher elevations and appear above green valleys, creating an extraordinary contrast between living and frozen landscapes. Meltwater feeds countless streams and waterfalls that flow into the forest below. Thousands of years ago, this mass of ice extended all the way to the valley floor. As the climate warmed, the glacier retreated to higher elevations, leaving its lower section disconnected. What remains today is a hanging glacier that appears caught on the side of the mountain. Its pale blue tone stands in sharp contrast to the dark gray granite beneath it and the deep green forest below. Meltwater pours constantly from its edges. Instead of forming a river at its base, it bursts directly from the rock, creating two main waterfalls that plunge roughly 350 meters. This is a place that invites slow exploration, with the viewpoints where dense vegetation, ice, stone, and forest come together in a single frame. Over thousands of years, mineral-rich water slowly carved its way through solid marble, shaping a network of smooth tunnels and caves. The rock walls here display swirling patterns of polished gray, white, and blue. The marble caves are not the work of brute force, but of patience. What makes this place even more extraordinary is the way light dances with color. Sunlight reflected from the water enters the caves and fills them with shifting tones of turquoise and blue. The marble caves can only be reached by boat, which makes the experience feel even more intimate. Although the marble appears delicate, it is incredibly resilient, formed through long and demanding geological processes. This is a place where glacial history, geological transformation, and active water systems meet in a truly unique natural wonder. The moment you enter, the atmosphere shifts. Daylight stays outside, yet reflects off the water and fills the cave with color. The moving water and shifting reflections have shaped these walls over thousands of years. The surface of the marble is far smoother than expected. If you could touch it, you would feel that smoothness. It comes from water carving the same paths repeatedly over time. The caves themselves are small, but inside these narrow spaces, light and color intensify so much that the moment feels larger than it is. When you leave, it's hard to fully process what you just saw. After the harsh drama of the Carretera Austral, the landscape softens. Rugged peaks give way to forested hills. Built on the southern shore of Lago Nahuel Huapi, this city is often called the Switzerland of South America. It earned that name through both its history and its geography. Especially through immigrants arriving from Switzerland, Austria, and Germany in the late 19th century. Bariloche developed with a distinctly Central European identity. Alpine-style rooftops, stone buildings, and an orderly town center all reflect that heritage. Lago Nahuel Huapi forms the geographic and ecological core of the region. This lake lies across a wide area at roughly 770 meters above sea level. It was carved by glacial movement during the last ice age. Like Lago Argentino, its shape still carries the mark of ancient ice flow, with an irregular shoreline and multiple long arms extending deep into forested valleys and snow-covered peaks. Even in summer, its waters remain very cold, deep blue, and clear. That clarity reflects the low organic sediment load and the influence of glacial and mountain runoff. Lago Nahuel Huapi lies within Nahuel Huapi National Park, Argentina's first national park. This protected area includes Andean peaks, native lenga and Coihue forests, and diverse wildlife adapted to temperate mountain ecosystems. From June to August, winter snowfall transforms the surrounding mountains and prepares the largest ski destination in South America. Cerro Cathedral lies just outside the city and stands out for its extensive ski terrain and infrastructure, drawing visitors from across the continent. Bariloche is also a threshold between two sides of Patagonia. On one side, a more orderly world. On the other, the shifting wilderness that keeps pulling you farther in. For first-time visitors, Bariloche is unexpected. After the wild landscapes of Patagonia, its stone buildings and orderly streets feel almost staged. But soon, that contrast turns into a sense of ease. It becomes a place to pause. In the city center, you see chocolate shops, small cafes, and craft stores. This is not coincidence. It reflects the European settlers who built this place. Every building carries a piece of that history. Sitting by Lake Nahuel Huapi, looking at the mountains across the water, you understand why this place is so appealing. Nature is still powerful here, but the city has found a way to live alongside it. A UNESCO World Heritage Peninsula, east of Bariloche's forests and lakes. Where the dry Patagonian steppe meets the Atlantic coast, both the landscape and the ecosystem change with astonishing force. The mountains gradually disappear, giving way to dry land stretching toward the Atlantic. At first glance, it may seem empty. In reality, this is one of the most important wildlife regions in South America. The peninsula's shallow coastal waters create ideal conditions for marine life, turning the shoreline into a seasonal gathering ground. Every year, southern right whales arrive in these protected bays to mate and raise their calves. Sea lions and elephant seals crowd the beaches. Orcas, using a rare hunting technique observed here, launch themselves onto the shore to catch sea lion pups, then slide back into deeper water with the returning waves. On land, guanacos and armadillos move through the open steppe, adapted to scarce water and relentless winds. In much of Patagonia, wildlife behavior feels scattered and hard to read. Here, it follows clear seasonal rhythms. Valdés Peninsula is a place where the noise of ocean life meets the silence of the coast, and where the abundance beneath the waves balances the harsh dryness of the land. Where Patagonia converges with the sea, nestled beside the Valdés Peninsula. Founded in the 19th century by Welsh settlers, the city grew around the natural harbor that made this stretch of coastline accessible. It serves as a base for marine research, conservation work, and travel into the surrounding wildlife areas. Wide streets, a long waterfront, and a mild coastal climate give the city a calm and open atmosphere. At the southern edge of Argentina lies the city known as the end of the world. As the capital of Tierra del Fuego province, Ushuaia holds the title of the world's second southernmost city. The island of Tierra del Fuego is separated from mainland South America by the Strait of Magellan, creating a natural transition between the continent and the subpolar frontier. Ushuaia is nestled within a narrow strip between the Marshall Range and the Beagle Channel. Its location defines its identity. Beyond this point, there are no large cities, only open ocean and Antarctica roughly 1,000 kilometers to the south. Ushuaia serves as the logistical hub for journeys and scientific missions to the Antarctic Peninsula, with the vast majority departing from here. Daily life unfolds around ships coming and going, cold waters, and snow-covered peaks. It is a place of sharp contrasts, ordinary routines set against extreme conditions. The city leaves steep mountains at its back, while the channel opens toward distant horizons. Wildlife, constantly shifting weather, and landscapes reshaped again and again by the elements define the experience. Les Éclaireurs Lighthouse is one of the best-known symbols along the Beagle Channel. Standing on a rocky islet, it continues to function as an active navigational beacon. The surrounding islands provide resting, nesting, and colony space, for South American fur seals and cormorants. To the west lies Tierra del Fuego National Park, the only coastal national park in Argentina. Within a single protected area, freshwater rivers, marine bays, mountain slopes, and subpolar beach forests exist together. La Pitaya Bay, inside the park, marks the southern endpoint of the Pan-American Highway. In Ushuaia, you do not feel as if you have reached the end of a journey, but the beginning of one, or perhaps a place to pause and breathe. Here, Patagonia reveals the point where land runs out and the silent passage of ocean and ice begins. When you arrive in Ushuaia, the city feels unexpectedly alive. Ship horns echo through the harbor, fishermen prepare their boats, and travelers walk along the docks. But this is not a final stop, it is a starting point. Every journey toward Antarctica begins here. As you move through the Beagle Channel, the borders of two countries stretch along both sides of the water. These seas once carried exploration ships and endless storms. Today, they host resting sea lions on the rocks and seabirds gliding just above the surface. As if the harshness of the past has slowly softened into a quieter rhythm. Behind the city, mountains rise into shifting clouds and fresh snow. The weather can change within hours, clear skies turning into heavy fog, then back again without warning. That constant uncertainty shapes Ushuaia's identity. Every moment here feels temporary, as if the next hour might belong to an entirely different season. Describing Patagonia is far more difficult than experiencing it. Words fall short, because this landscape is not only seen, it is felt through movement, through cold, through its distinct shades of blue. A photograph cannot recreate those silent moments spent in front of a glacier. A video cannot carry the sound of wind striking your ears from the summit of Fitz Roy. Patagonia leaves its mark in a tangible way. Every place you've seen throughout this journey was different, yet built upon the same foundation. The glacial lakes of El Calafate, the granite towers of El Chaltén, the turquoise waters of Torres del Paine, the quiet channel of Ushuaia. These are not separate locations, but different words within the same sentence. This land holds a scale that humanity has not yet fully managed to define. Every second spent in Patagonia reveals something. The speed of modern life becomes irrelevant here. The weather stops you, the road slows you down, the glacier makes you wait. Within this altered flow of time, you begin to notice things you haven't paid attention to in a long time, the way the environment looks, the way the air feels. Patagonia restores your attention through its own natural rhythm. Even watching these images on a screen still carries a trace of that feeling. It can leave you with a sense of restlessness, something missing, or perhaps the opposite, an unexpected calm. And that's exactly why writing about this place, talking about it, or even watching it will never truly be enough. Because Patagonia does not become smaller when it is told. On the contrary, it grows deeper with every retelling. At its core, Patagonia is shaped by patience. Glaciers advance over thousands of years. Caves are carved by the century-long patience of waves. Forests grow and evolve over vast stretches of time. And as people begin to understand this land, they also begin to rebuild their relationship with time itself. Patagonia has never been a place designed by human logic or shaped for comfort. Everything here operates according to natural systems that are far older, far stronger, and far less forgiving than us. That is exactly why those who see this region once can rarely turn their backs on it. Patagonia does not adapt to people. People adapt to Patagonia. And perhaps the most powerful travel experiences in the world are born exactly this way. In places that make you feel smaller, quieter, and leave something restless inside you, whispering, "One day, I will return." If you enjoyed exploring Patagonia with us, subscribe for more cinematic 4K journeys into the world's most extraordinary places. Leave a like, share this film with someone who loves travel, and tell us in the comments which part of Patagonia stayed with you the most. Until the next journey. Until the next journey.